if they survive long enough to prove their innocence.
Today, we break the silence on the more than 2.4 million people locked away in cages all across the United States, 60% of them Black and Latino.
Today, we break the silence on the conditions inside these cages all across this country, where people are subjected to conditions of torture.
Today, we break the silence for those who have served their sentences and paid their debt to society, yet are discriminated against, barred from housing and basic rights like voting for the rest of their lives.
Mass incarceration plus silence equals genocide. Today, we break that silence all over the country. This morning in the high schools and then later in the trains, we were going out to people today to do exactly that. We had experiences inside the trains talking to people where we pointed out the fact that every morning in New York City, people get on the subways and they're riding with people who they themselves or their family and people they know have been either stopped and harassed and brutalized by the police, or have been imprisoned and incarcerated, have faced these kinds of torture-like conditions, have gotten out of prison and faced discrimination in jobs, in housing, and education. They can't receive government aid and food stamps. Every day people ride the trains and the person sitting next to them is affected. We're not just talking about people being portrayed as criminals on TV, which they are. We're talking about people's lives being criminalized. The way they live their lives, they're treated like criminals every day. And today, people began to talk to the person sitting next to them on the train. Can you imagine that?
Yes, indeed. It was a transformative experience, opening up and taking bear witness to the streets and taking it to the trains. Again, we even gave them a pop quiz. You know, we asked them for extra credit points and all the class participation points you'll get today. All right? The New York City Police Department stops and frisks 2,000 people a day, 2,000 times a day. All right? And we wanted to know the number one time, the number one reason that they cited. Anybody want to take a guess?
School's out.
School's out was the number one reason they cite. Because school's out. Well, they don't cite that. Anybody want to guess the number one reason? Reasonable suspicion. Hoodies. All right.
Saggy jeans.
Saggy jeans. All right. The number one reason.
Furtive movement.
Furtive movement. Because you walked like a criminal. Like you were convicted of a crime. We are not talking about criminals. We're talking about people whose behavioral characteristics have been criminalized. What's the number two reason? You'll never get this one. I heard some people shout it out.
Other.
What's the number two reason? Anybody want to guess? I think I heard somebody say it like, I'm not sure, I don't know. I heard somebody say other. Well, they're both correct. They actually don't know. The second most cited reason is other. Yes, other. No reason at all. Again, this is about people being criminalized. And as we brought this to people, they started to open up. And there was one gentleman who said, you know what, you guys just kept going and you kept going. And I thought about it and I said, should I say something? And then he said something. He said his son, 25-year-old real estate agent in the Bronx, has gone to college, has done all the right things. Outside of his own practice, was stopped and asked for ID. And of course, this wasn't the first time. And of course, this wasn't the first time this man was recalling this story. But this was in a crowded train in rush hour that sparked a conversation, that sparked other conversations where people brought out their stories. And this is the day that we need to break the silence. And we're going to call on all of you to share stories of people you know. To share stories, to share your own stories. Because we know that there are millions of stories out there.
So who's coming up?
Who will join the brave ones and twos and break the silence? Because it matters.
Hi, my name is Erica, and I am a member of the Anti-Racist Alliance, and I've done the training with the People's Institute for Survival and Beyond anti-racist training, and I'm a white ally. I just got off the phone today with a kid that I mentor who has been sent to Clinton maximum security prison for a crime that he did not do in December of 2010, and he was railroaded by the police in Westchester County along with 2 other young black men, and they're all in prison now, and he got 10 years with shoddy representation, with terrible lawyers, with a very corrupt judge up in Westchester County at the White Plains Criminal Courthouse up there. So I spoke to him today. He's okay. It's outrageous, it's shameful, and as a white person who's never been stopped and frisked, who's never been walking in the shoes of our young brothers and sisters who are of color in the city and all over the country, I need to stand forward, and I need to speak out, and I need to attend these rallies, and I need to show my support. Thank you.
Okay, so I'll tell a story. At the end of March, a couple weeks ago, I was out in a park up in Harlem where I talked to a lot of high school students, and I've been doing this for a while. And I was speaking to them about the murder of Trayvon Martin, and many of them gathered around to discuss this and express how they felt, and they were taking like posters of said "We are all Trayvon." And the police showed up and began to herd them outside of the park. And I walked with the young people to the trains and the buses to make sure that they were safe, because the police lined up vans 4 blocks long and started shouting on bullhorns that they would arrest the students and they would spend the night in jail if they didn't walk fast enough, if they continued to stop and talk. And part of it was what they do to these young people every day, where they criminalize them for standing outside of the deli waiting for their friends to come out, or they yell at them and threaten them for waiting at the bus stop but not waiting close enough to the bus stop. They yell at them for walking too slow, for talking to each other while they're walking. They yell at them for stopping and having conversations. But they were also agitated because these youth had these posters. They were screaming, "We want justice, we want justice," and throwing their hoodies on, and because they felt like they were all Trayvon Martin. And on my way back from that scene, some of the youth came up to me and said the police had just thrown a young black boy through the window at Chase Bank. Seconds later, I see them running after a young woman who they chase into the streets and arrest. And then they tried to jump at a crowd of young people who gathered to watch them do that. I attempted to protect one of the young men who they were jumping at, and they slammed me to the ground twice and then dragged me to jail. And they're now trying to paint me as a repeat offender and menace to society, and escalate charges that have been brought against me from before. And that's connected to the court date coming up in April 30th, which is a court date for all of the people involved in the campaign to stop and frisk, and it's beginning on October 21st in Harlem. There's going to be a court date where people are standing a trial for those charges. So who's next?